Some riffs are just a collection of notes. Others are cultural events. They define a moment in time. They capture the feeling of an entire generation. The opening riff of Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit is one of those phenomenal moments. It's 4 simple power chords, but the impact was, honestly, seismic. When that clean, chorus-drenched guitar part kicks in, followed by the explosion of distorted power, it's instantly recognizable. It's the sound of apathy turning into anger, a quiet verse erupting into a loud chorus. It's the sound that took grunge from the Seattle underground and blasted it into every home across the globe. But where did this world-changing riff come from? For years, its creation was shrouded in a kind of myth. Was it a moment of pure, tortured genius from Kurt Cobain? A happy accident in a dingy rehearsal space? The story is far more interesting than you might think. It's a tale that involves other bands, a bit of self-conscious imitation, and the raw energy of 3 musicians locking into something truly special. This wasn't just a song written in isolation. It was a product of its environment, its influences, and the unique chemistry of Nirvana. Unpacking the story of this riff is like an archaeological dig into the heart of the 90s. The song became an anthem for what was dubbed Generation X. But Kurt Cobain himself had a complicated relationship with its success. He felt the song was misunderstood. He worried that the very people he was critiquing in his lyrics were the ones singing along the loudest at his shows. The riff became so massive, so ubiquitous, that it almost overshadowed the band itself. It was a blessing and a curse. It gave them a platform bigger than they could have ever imagined, but it also trapped them in a box of public expectation. The mystery of its creation only adds to its powerful allure. Today, more than 3 decades after it was unleashed upon the world, the riff has lost none of its power. It still feels urgent. It still feels raw. It's a rite of passage for every young guitarist learning to play, a staple on rock radio, and a touchstone for countless artists who followed. To understand this riff is to understand the shift in popular music that occurred in the early 1990s. It was the sound of the alternative nation crashing the gates of the mainstream. Let's delve into the real story behind the notes that ignited a musical revolution. The birth of the Smells Like Teen Spirit riff wasn't a grand, dramatic event. It was much more mundane, which makes its eventual impact even more remarkable. Kurt Cobain brought the main riff to a band rehearsal just weeks before they were scheduled to record the Nevermind album. Initially, he played it for bassist Chris Novoselic, who was immediately dismissive. Chris thought it was clumsy and overly simple. He told Kurt it sounded like a ripoff of another band, a common critique within their creative process. For a moment, the riff that would define a decade was almost thrown away, discarded as unoriginal. Kurt was persistent. He made the band play the riff over and over again. For an hour and a half, they hammered away at it. The simple 4-chord progression, F to B flat to G sharp to C sharp, began to take shape. It was during this lengthy, repetitive jam session that the magic started to happen. Drummer Dave Grohl, the newest member of the band, began to add his own distinctive touch. He added the powerful, syncopated drum pattern that perfectly complements the guitar's quiet, loud dynamic. It was this rhythmic interplay that finally made Chris Novoselic see the potential. The song was transforming from a simple guitar line into a full band masterpiece. Cobain later admitted the riff was a conscious effort to write the ultimate pop song. He was, in his own words, trying to rip off the Pixies. He admired their songwriting formula, particularly the dynamic shift from soft, quiet verses to loud, screaming choruses. He wanted to emulate that structure. The main guitar riff, with its clean, watery tone in the verses and its explosive distortion in the chorus, became the perfect vehicle for this idea. It was a deliberate exercise in pop craftsmanship, filtered through the lens of punk rock and alternative noise. It was a formula, but one that Nirvana made entirely their own. So, the riff wasn't a bolt of lightning from the sky. It was a piece of musical architecture, carefully constructed and then brought to life by the sheer force of the band's chemistry. Kurt provided the blueprint. Dave Grohl added the rhythmic foundation that made it hit so hard. Chris Novoselic found the bass line that anchored the whole thing. It was a collaborative effort, born from repetition, a touch of self-doubt, and the shared goal of creating something that was both catchy and powerful. The accidental anthem was born not from a single genius, but from a trio of musicians pushing each other to turn something simple into something extraordinary. The sound of Smells Like Teen Spirit is as much about the gear as it is about the notes being played. Kurt Cobain's guitar tone on that track is iconic, and it was achieved with a very specific and surprisingly affordable setup. His main guitar for the Nevermind sessions was a 1965 Fender Jaguar, which he famously loved despite its quirks. However, for Teen Spirit, he primarily used a left-handed 1969 Fender Mustang. This was a relatively cheap, short-scale student guitar, not a high-end instrument. Its small size and unique sound were perfect for Kurt's aggressive playing style. This choice of a non-traditional, almost underdog guitar became central to the grunge aesthetic. The amp setup was crucial for achieving the song's signature quiet, loud dynamic. For the clean, watery tones in the verses, Kurt played through a Mesa Boogie Studio preamp. This was then run into the power section of a Crown power amplifier, and finally into a Marshall 4x12 speaker cabinet. This combination allowed for a pristine, clean sound that could be instantly switched. For the explosive, distorted chorus, he stomped on a Boss DS1 distortion pedal. This inexpensive, bright orange pedal was the key to his raw, high-gain sound. It's a pedal you could find in any local music shop, proving you didn't need boutique gear to make a massive sound. Another essential ingredient in the Riffs sonic recipe was the Electro-Harmonix small clone chorus pedal. This is the effect you hear on the clean guitar part in the intro and verses, giving it that shimmering, underwater quality. Producer Butch Vig has said that this pedal was the secret weapon. It added a beautiful, eerie texture that made the clean sections feel unsettling, creating a perfect sense of tension before the distorted chorus kicked in. Without the small clone, the riff would lose a huge part of its atmospheric character. It's the sonic glue that holds the two distinct dynamics together. Bassist Chris Novoselic and drummer Dave Grohl also had signature sounds. Chris played a Gibson Ripper bass through an Ampeg SVT 400T head and a Marshall cabinet, providing the thick, driving low end that anchored the song. Dave Grohl, known for his incredibly hard-hitting style, played a Tama Grandstar drum kit with Zildjian cymbals. His powerful, precise drumming was essential to the song's impact. Butch Vig famously had to use specific microphones and recording techniques just to capture the sheer volume and energy of Grohl's playing. Together, this combination of gear, much of it accessible and unpretentious, created the sound that defined a generation. Every artist stands on the shoulders of giants, and Kurt Cobain was no exception. He was very open about his influences, but the primary inspiration for the Smells Like Teen Spirit riff might surprise you. While he famously said he was trying to rip off the Pixies, the specific melodic structure of the riff has an even more unexpected origin: the 1970s arena rock band, Boston. Cobain himself admitted that the riff was a thinly veiled nod to Boston's massive hit, More Than a Feeling. If you listen to the main guitar arpeggios in both songs, the similarity in feel and chord progression is undeniable. This connection seems almost comical. Boston represented the polished corporate rock that punk and grunge were rebelling against. They were the antithesis of everything Nirvana stood for. Yet Cobain, with his encyclopedic knowledge of rock history, saw the genius in that song's hook. He took that classic rock sensibility, that earworm melody, and twisted it. He filtered it through a punk rock ethos, drenching it in distortion and angst. It was a subversive act, taking a piece of the rock establishment and turning it into a weapon for the underground. It was his way of proving that a great pop hook could be found anywhere. Of course, the influence of the Pixies is just as important, particularly for the song's structure. Cobain was obsessed with the Pixies' use of extreme dynamics. He marveled at how they could shift from a quiet, whispered verse to a loud, screaming chorus in an instant. His quiet, loud formula became the blueprint for Smells Like Teen Spirit. The clean, chorus-laden riff of the verse builds tension, making the explosion of the distorted chorus feel even more cathartic and powerful. He wasn't just copying a sound. He was adopting a songwriting philosophy that prioritized emotional impact over everything else. The final piece of the puzzle was the punk rock energy of bands like the Melvins and Black Flag. This is where the raw power and aggression come from. While the melody might have a hint of Boston and the structure a debt to the Pixies, the performance is pure punk. The sloppy, aggressive guitar playing, the thunderous drumming, and the raw-throated vocals are a direct continuation of the American hardcore scene. Smells Like Teen Spirit is a perfect storm of influences. The pop sensibility of classic rock, the dynamic genius of alternative pioneers, and the uncompromising energy of punk. It's a hybrid that became something entirely new. The recording of Smells Like Teen Spirit at Sound City Studios in May 1991 is the stuff of legend. At the helm was producer Butch Vig, who had previously worked with the band on demos. Vig's role was to capture the band's raw energy without cleaning it up too much. He knew he had something special on his hands from the first time they played the song for him. He immediately recognized its hit potential. One of his first and most crucial decisions was to slightly slow the tempo down. The band had been playing it much faster live, and Vig felt that a slightly slower, groovier pace would give it more weight and power. One of the most famous studio secrets involves Kurt Cobain's vocals. To get the intense, strained vocal performance in the chorus, Vig used a classic studio trick. He had Kurt do multiple vocal takes, one after the other, until his voice was genuinely raw and on the edge of breaking. However, to add more polish and power without losing authenticity, Vig secretly recorded Kurt's vocal track and double-tracked it. This means he blended a second, identical vocal performance underneath the main one. Kurt was famously resistant to this kind of studio polish, so Vig had to be clever. He told Kurt he was just checking the microphone. This technique made the vocals sound huge and powerful, a key element of the song's epic feel. Getting the perfect guitar sound was another challenge. The band was determined to capture their live dynamic in the studio. To achieve the dramatic switch from the clean verse to the distorted chorus, they used a setup that allowed Kurt to stomp on his pedals and change the sound instantly. Butch Vig was meticulous about miking the Marshall cabinet to capture every ounce of that distorted fury. He used a combination of microphones, including a Neumann U87 and a Shure SM57, to blend different tonal characteristics and create the massive wall of sound you hear on the record. It wasn't just distortion, it was carefully sculpted noise. Despite the song's eventual polish, the sessions were incredibly fast and efficient. Nirvana recorded the entire album in just over 2 weeks. For Teen Spirit, they nailed the basic instrumental track in only 3 takes. This speaks to how well-rehearsed and tight they were as a unit. The raw energy you hear is not a studio creation. It's the sound of a band at the peak of their powers, captured with just the right amount of studio magic. Butch Vig's genius was not in changing the band, but in knowing exactly how to capture their lightning in a bottle. When Smells Like Teen Spirit was released in September 1991, the initial reaction from critics was not a unanimous roar of approval. It was more of a slow burn, a gradual realization that something significant was happening. Many mainstream critics at first didn't quite know what to make of it. Publications like Rolling Stone initially gave Nevermind a solid but not spectacular review. They acknowledged the band's power and Cobain's songwriting talent, but they didn't predict the cultural earthquake that was about to happen. Some dismissed the sound as just another noisy, punk-influenced rock song, failing to hear the sophisticated pop structure lurking beneath the distortion. However, in the alternative and college radio scenes, the reaction was immediate and electric. Music journalists who were deeply embedded in the underground recognized the song's power instantly. They praised its fusion of punk aggression and pop hooks. The UK music press, in particular, was quick to champion the band. Magazines like NME and Melody Maker hailed Nirvana as the saviors of rock music, a breath of fresh, authentic air in a scene dominated by hair metal and manufactured pop. They celebrated the song's raw emotion and Cobain's enigmatic, anti-rockstar persona. They understood that this was more than just a song, it was a statement. As the song and video exploded on MTV, mainstream critics had to reevaluate their initial, more reserved takes. The sheer force of its popularity was impossible to ignore. Retrospective reviews and end-of-year lists were a different story. Smells Like Teen Spirit began appearing at the top of best song lists everywhere. Critics who had initially been lukewarm now wrote glowing essays about its cultural significance. They analyzed the lyrics, the video, and the riff's undeniable power. It was a classic case of the public leading the critics, forcing the music establishment to catch up to what young people already knew. This song was special. There were, of course, detractors. Some older, more traditional rock critics found the sound abrasive and the lyrics unintelligible. They lamented the lack of technical virtuosity in Cobain's guitar playing, missing the point that the emotion and attitude were the entire point. Some accused the band of being derivative, pointing out the obvious Pixies and Boston influences as a lack of originality rather than a clever recontextualization. But these negative voices were quickly drowned out. The overwhelming consensus that emerged was that Smells Like Teen Spirit was a landmark achievement, a song that perfectly captured the zeitgeist of its time. The impact of the Smells Like Teen Spirit riff extended far beyond the confines of grunge and alternative rock. Its influence bled into nearly every corner of the musical landscape, fundamentally changing the sound of popular music for years to come. One of the most immediate effects was on mainstream rock and pop punk. Bands that had been playing a slicker, more polished style of rock suddenly adopted a rawer, more distorted guitar sound. The quiet and loud dynamic became a staple songwriting tool for countless bands in the mid to late 90s, from Bush to Live to Everclear. You could hear the DNA of that riff in their music. Even more surprising was the riff's influence on genres seemingly far removed from rock. In the world of pop music, producers started incorporating distorted guitar textures and more aggressive dynamics into their songs. You can hear echoes of Nirvana's sonic palette in the work of artists like Alanis Morissette, whose album Jagged Little Pill channeled a similar raw emotional intensity. The riff proved that mainstream audiences were ready for sounds that were more abrasive and emotionally honest. It broke down the walls between what was considered alternative and what was considered pop, creating a new, hybrid mainstream sound. The riff's power was so universal that it was even reinterpreted in completely different musical languages. The composer and pianist Tori Amos famously recorded a haunting, stripped-down cover of the song, transforming the aggressive riff into a dark, melancholic piano arpeggio. This version revealed the beautiful, sad melody hidden beneath the layers of distortion and rage. Jazz ensembles and even classical orchestras have created their own arrangements, demonstrating the riff's robust melodic and harmonic structure. Its ability to be translated into so many different styles is a testament to the strength of its fundamental composition. In the world of hip-hop, the spirit of the riff, its rebellious energy and raw power, also found a home. While not a direct musical influence, the attitude of Smells Like Teen Spirit resonated with the ethos of many rap artists. More directly, Jay-Z famously interpolated the song's lyrics and melody into his track Holy Grail, featuring Justin Timberlake. This was a monumental moment, showing a new generation that the song's themes of angst and disillusionment with fame were universal. The riff had become such a part of the cultural lexicon that it could be referenced in any genre and still be instantly understood. The legacy of Smells Like Teen Spirit is not just a historical footnote. It continues to be a living, breathing influence on a new generation of artists today. Many of today's most vital voices in rock and alternative music point directly to Nirvana, and that riff specifically as a formative inspiration. For example, the acclaimed indie rock artist Phoebe Bridgers has often spoken about her love for Nirvana. While her music is sonically much quieter and more folk-influenced, she employs a similar use of raw emotional honesty and sudden dynamic shifts in her songwriting, a clear echo of the path Nirvana forged. In the heavier rock world, bands like Royal Blood, a duo that creates a massive sound with just bass and drums, are built on the same principle of minimalist power that Nirvana championed. Mike Kerr, the bassist and vocalist, uses a complex pedal setup to make his bass sound like a distorted guitar, creating huge, memorable riffs that owe a debt to the simplicity and impact of Teen Spirit. They prove that the ethos of using simple tools to create a powerful noise is still a potent formula for modern rock music. The spirit of making a huge sound with a small setup lives on. Even in the realm of pop music, the influence is still felt. Artists like Billie Eilish, while sonically in a different universe, share a certain ethos with Nirvana. Her music often explores themes of teen angst, disillusionment, and mental health with an unflinching honesty that recalls Kurt Cobain's songwriting. Her use of quiet, whispered verses that build to more intense, bass-heavy choruses is a modern interpretation of the quiet and loud dynamic that Smells Like Teen Spirit made famous. It's an influence of spirit and structure rather than just sound. Perhaps one of the most direct lines of inspiration can be seen in younger artists like Biabadoobie, whose music blends 90s alternative rock aesthetics with modern dream pop. She has been very vocal about her love for bands like Pavement and Nirvana, and you can hear it in her guitar tones and song structures. She proves that the sounds of the 90s are not just a nostalgia trip. They are a valid and powerful vocabulary for young artists to express themselves today. Smells Like Teen Spirit isn't just a song they cover, it's a part of their musical DNA, a foundational text they build upon. In the end, the four chords of Smells Like Teen Spirit are so much more than just a guitar riff. They are a cultural time capsule. They represent a moment when the music world shifted on its axis, when the outsiders stormed the castle and became the new kings. The riff was a signal, a call to arms for a generation that felt unseen and unheard. Its simplicity was its genius. It was easy enough for any kid in a garage to learn, making it a democratic anthem. You didn't need years of technical training, you just needed a cheap guitar, a distortion pedal, and something to say. The riff's journey from a Boston-inspired experiment to a global phenomenon is a story about the alchemy of music. It shows how influences can be absorbed, transformed, and reborn into something entirely new and revolutionary. It's a testament to the collaborative magic that can happen when the right musicians come together at the right time. Kurt Cobain may have written the notes, but it was the combined power of him, Chris Novoselic, and Dave Grohl that turned those notes into thunder. The production magic of Butch Vig polished that thunder into a lightning strike that could be broadcast across the world. Today, the riff exists in a strange and wonderful space. It is simultaneously a museum piece, a perfect specimen of a bygone era, and a living piece of music that continues to inspire. It has been covered, sampled, analyzed, and deconstructed, yet it has never lost its initial, visceral power. When you hear that clean, chorus-drenched opening, you still feel the anticipation. When the distortion kicks in, you still feel the release. It's a Pavlovian response embedded in the consciousness of anyone who lived through the 90s, and it continues to be discovered by new generations. The enduring legacy of Smells Like Teen Spirit is its perfect paradox. It was a pop song designed to critique the mainstream, an anti-establishment anthem that became one of the most popular songs of all time. It made Kurt Cobain the reluctant spokesperson for a generation he was never entirely comfortable leading. The riff is the sound of that beautiful, powerful contradiction. It's the sound of authenticity meeting commerce, of punk rock energy meeting pop perfection. It wasn't just the riff that changed music, it was the riff that defined a moment, and its echoes will continue to be heard for decades to come.